Hi, it's Paula from Paula Quilting. Welcome back to my channel. Don't you just love when you are being given a project and you find just the right thing to complete it in one of your oldest project trays you have? So that actually happened to me. I am a member of Southampton Sewing Social group on Facebook, and I did share one of the previous projects we have been completing together as a group. I will link it in the description below. So after we've completed the last one, the next project was to make some bed sheets and some quilts for neonatal department of the hospital, which means we are working with mini bed sheets and mini quilts. For after project comments and suggestions, stay till the end of this video. I went through my cupboard with bigger pieces of the fabric. I don't have many of those, but I've got few, and I found few I can use as a bed sheets. That was actually a bedding I kind of bought somewhere on sale, so that will be great for that. And this is also a bedding which I've used some fussy cutting before, but I've got a big piece here so I can use that for a bed sheet as well. This one's got a teddy bear on it, so I will see how big is it, because maybe I can make a quilt of it, kind of a cheated panel. And this is the oldest project box I've got. So probably around 2 years ago in Scrapstore, which I mentioned a few times, I bought the bag of scraps, and inside were those like a small patches. So I've put them away into this box. I even matched up some shirt fabric which was going with the colors of those squares. But the trouble was that I only got, like you can see, 4 of those and 3 of those. So I was really struggling to figure out what type of quilt, obviously kids quilt for maybe Project Linus, a bit bigger, how to design it so they don't disappear in the overall of the design. Now the quilts I will be working for this project are mini, so they are about 20 by 30 inches, so that will make a big block in those quilts, so perfect opportunity to use them up. So that's about 2 years old, this scrap box. I have passed by the scrap store just recently because I've run out all the colorful fabrics I had in my stash. So I went to have a look at the scrap buckets, and I picked up few bags as usual, and inside were those bits and pieces, which I don't know, it's a luck for me to find all of those, because that will make a great center panel for another few mini quilts. I also found those kind of, I don't know, somebody probably was using it to make some bibs for children, but I can make this a central piece for the quilt as well. I just cut it out into a square or rectangle. So don't you just love it when you just got exactly the right thing for the project you want, and you didn't even have to go and buy anything extra. So I'm ready to work with my first project, and I already like it because it gives me opportunity to use some of my fleece scraps which I'm using as a batting. So the quilts I need to make are size 20 by 30 inches. So got those 3 squares which, like I said, I kind of pulled up somewhere from the scrap store, random bits, but they kind of go nicely together, so I would like to make first quilt with those squares. So I've cut my pieces of the scrap batting to 21 to kind of 11-ish rectangles. So when I put all of the things together and I square it up, I should have my 20 by 30 inches quilt. And I will be making it that kind of half quilt as you go method, because I will be quilting straight on the front part of the batting, but I will quilt it, I will add the backing at the very end when this is all now going to be one piece. So let's see if it will work. Now I could put the squares here at in the middle and just do something around it, but I think it would be nice if they kind of are a little bit maybe wonky. One goes one direction, second direction, and then first direction again, just to add a little bit of movement there. So what I want to do, let me take the first rectangle. I do need to make some markings on my rectangle so I know which way I'm going with all of those stuff. So I will draw myself a line which will be from corner to corner. And I'm just using blue chalk, like the sew is using to make all the markings. So that's my first diagonal line, and let's use that lovely picture of the rocket here. So I would like this picture to go this way. How wide is the picture? I have not squared those squares at all. This is how they come up from the bag, but it's not necessary to do. They are about 5 inches, a little bit more than 5 inches. So I will center it again more or less. There will be no measurement here needed. Okay, so that's where I am, and again I will mark where the edges are. On the other side I will do the same markings. It's just to kind of see where I'm going to be finishing the strips, and I will tell you in a minute what the design for it is going to be. Okay. And also I would like to know where is my middle of that rectangle, so I know where to place my picture. Okay, so that should be all the markings I need. Let's go this way. That's where that middle more or less is. Again, it doesn't have to be exact, but you know, just more or less where it is. Working with fleece is good in a way that once you've put the fabric in, it doesn't move too much. It's like, you know, when you're making your design wall, the fleece is good to use because for exactly the same reason. So I've got all marked up. I'll be working with all of my scraps. So those are 1.5 inches. They are coming out from my scrap management process. I will link in the description below the tutorial to how I kind of go with my scraps. Those are just random scraps from when I was trimming some squares to smaller ones. They look like 1.5 inches, but actually they are not, and some of them will be a little bit more wonky than others. And those ones again a little bit wider, but they were from trimming of something, so they are not 2.5 inches, some random ones. And I will be picking up obviously something color coordinated with my picture, so some browns, beiges, there's some greens here, so dark greens will be nice. So something so go nicely with this. So the design I'm thinking for that project is that I will first go and start adding strips this way until I finish all the strip up and down, and then I will finish off with strips, longer strips on the sides, and I will finish all of those blocks exactly the same method, and then I will need to link them, so I will use some of the methods I've shown in my previous videos, and we go from there. Now I need to go through my scraps and pick up some of the colors which will nicely fit to that picture. Okay, so I've got enough to start, and then obviously I will be starting pulling out from my other trays as well once I run out of the color coordinated stuff in those first few trays. So I've got those wider ones. I might cut them maybe into half just so I've got narrower strips. So definitely if you have a bucket with strings, you know, wonky strings what I call, by all means this is great opportunity to use it as well. And in fact I will bring my bucket as well to show you what I've got there. So as you can see I've got plenty. I've got some shorter bits here and some longer bits here, so I will start with what I've got, and then, you know, the search begins for the rest of the pieces. Now before I start stitching, depending on what you're working with, you may get away with just finger pressing the strips in between. If your fabric does not work well with that, just take it to the iron board every time you stitch, but then stitch on one side, stitch on second side, then go to iron, and then, you know, every 2 strips go to the iron. That will save you some time. Good to have an ironing board just next to you so you don't have to actually stand up anywhere, or just work with more blocks at the time, and that will save you time as well. So I finished sewing from both sides. Now I can take it to the iron board just to make it nice and flat, ready for the next part, which will be adding the strips on this side. Now, depending on your straight stitching skills, you can either just, you know, put a next strip here and just sew on, or you can draw yourself a line. So you would like to align yourself with the edge of the shortest piece. You may have something, you know, here that didn't go kind of what you were thinking about. You might be shorter than the picture itself. Just align it with the shorter piece, make the mark, and then when you ready, you just align your strip against it and sew straight. So depending of your skills, you kind of work both ways. Even if it's a little bit, you know, not exactly straight here, it's fine as well. Once you sew it all and quilt it, you won't see it. And you know, that's designer's choice. It's not a mistake, it's a designer choice. So what I will do now, I will finish my other two pieces, and then I'll be ready to add strips. So I will come back and show you that part. Okay, so all my strips are done. I'm ready to add my strips other way. I will make myself a kind of guideline where my first strip is going to be, and I'm just using normal pen just to draw on that fabric, just to align everything. Just know that if you're using a normal pen, just make sure the next strip you put on top of it is not something that is transparent or kind of see-through one, or white, because you will have, you know, you will see the pen. And if you do want to use something bright, then just use, you know, something what you can wash off for that. So just put the other line here. Okay, so that's the markings done. And I've got two very long strips here of this beige fabric, which will go nicely with that one. You can see it's not straight here. The edges are like a little bit wavy, but I will just kind of go and stitch it a little bit deeper to make sure I catch up with all of the unevenness. And then I've got the same fabric, just more skinny, and I will add it on the other side. And I've added the same fabric to the other two blocks I finished already. It's just, you know, it's all random, but it will kind of add a little bit of common ground for all of those blocks. So just something to consider. Okay, and once I've done those two, I will do the same thing. Flip it, iron, and add the next strips until you know, all the surface is covered, and then we'll be ready with the block number 3. I finished stitching my blocks, and I did square them up to 20 by 10 inches section as I needed them. So this is how they look. When I was designing like where which strip is going, you can see here the first strip I used on the longer edge. I used the same fabric here. So I hope now that when I put those blocks together, which is okay, so alien is going this way, then the space car will be in the middle. Let's move it up, and then I've got my rocket on here. Well, you cannot see it totally, but this is where it goes. Then that strip, which is the same, kind of makes like a zigzag shape here, kind of adds a little bit of that highlight how the strips are going, which way they're going. So I think it makes a nice addition to this block. So now that I've got them squared up to 20 by 10, I can use the strips, 1-inch strips, to link it together. So I have a 1-inch strip by 20. I will stitch it 1/4 inch on one side. I will add 1/4 inch on this side, so when I open them up, those edges will butt up nicely and I'll have a strip at the top. I'll try to look maybe even for the same fabric or something cream-ish so it kind of blends in. I used that technique in few tutorials, one of the most recent one, double scrapper, so I will link that in the description below so you can fully see the technique there. So when it's all now put together, I can add a backing, lightly quilted because it's all, you know, holds nicely already, so it doesn't need a lot of quilting. I will lightly quilt it, so just to keep that backing as well, and that mini quilt will be ready. Here it is, my finished quilt. I like how the change of direction adds additional movement to the design. You can use this method for any size of the quilt if you want to highlight something in the center of the block and use up loads of strips. I already made also a few sheets which are going to go with this quilt, and look forward to make my next mini quilt. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you will find something from what you have seen today useful. Remember that most of the quilting process is a matter of preference, so go and play with your ideas, go and play with new theories, test them and find your own favorite things. Thank you for watching and see you next time.